and went to some neighboring cities, spread the gospel there. More Jewish people got saved. And then he shared the gospel for the first time with his first non-Jewish family. He went into his first non-Jewish home, and one whole family got saved. So if you got your expansion map, you can mark up, let's see here. You can definitely mark up the little villages that he went to, Lydda and Sharon, if you see them. They're right next to Jerusalem, like to the left of Jerusalem. I don't even know if both of them are on there because they're so small. I see Lydda is there. I don't think Sharon. But just put maybe, those are little towns, so maybe 100 people. You could put 100 there for those ones. And, yeah. And then, let's see. And then that Roman family was up in Caesarea. So by Caesarea up there, you can see it better on yours than probably can on this. How many were in that family? I'm not sure. Maybe 10, 20, 30 if he got all his cousins. So you could put 30 right by the Caesarea one. And so today, if you've got your binder, flip to the page. I put some handouts in there while you guys were gone. 11.1 and 11.2. And I also have a slide for that. I'll pull that up. Megacities. So raise your hand if you've heard the word cosmopolitan. You know, some cities are called cosmopolitan cities. No, you guys haven't even heard that word, cosmopolitan? Okay, then I won't explain it. Cosmopolitan means a world city, a city. Like, some cities are just cities, and there's just, a few types of people there. Other cities are cities like they literally have people from all over the world in those cities. So an example of a cosmopolitan city would be Chicago. Raise your hand if you guys have been to Chicago. Okay, have you ever been to Chinatown in Chicago? Like, there's a whole section of the town that's just all Chinese. All the writing, all the stores, everything is Chinese. And then they have Italian, Little Italy, a section of Chicago that's all the people from Italy. And there's literally communities of people from all over the world in Chicago. So Chicago is literally a world city. It's a cosmopolitan city. It was also a mega city. So the 3 mega cities in the United States would be, what do you think the 3 major cosmopolitan cities in America are, if you had to guess? There's 3. The top 3, I would say. What's that? New York. Yep, New York's definitely number 1. What do you think number 2 would be? L.A. is number 2. Yep, exactly. What's number 3? Chicago. Yep, Chicago. Yeah, Milwaukee's probably like number 11. I would count Milwaukee as a cosmopolitan city for sure, but it's down on the list. Yeah, so the top 3 would be New York, L.A., and Chicago. Those are mega cities. They're also world cities, okay? Well, in the Roman Empire, they had some mega cities as well. And their 3 biggest cities, I've got them there. You guys got the handout? Have you found it in the back there? It's 11.1. So you've got all your notes, your blank notes in the back, and then just peel backwards from those blank notes till you get to a handout. It's the last handout in there. You guys see that? It's got a list of cities. Should look something like this. You guys see it? What's it numbered? Yeah, 11.1. I've got it here. Yeah, do you guys all have that in there? The megacities? Okay. So that gives you the actual megacities of the empire at this time, 40 A.D. Rome, as you'll see, Rome was the capital. It was the number 1 cosmopolitan city and megacity in the Roman Empire. Number 2, Rome had about 1 million. Alexandria was number 2 on the list. And the 3rd megacity was this city over just north of Israel, Antioch. All right? So those are the 3 megacities of the Roman Empire. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with this screen to look at and check out. So that's also a handout. That's handout 12.1. Take a look at this and orient yourself on that, and I will be right back. So take a look at that handout and get familiar with it a little bit. Yep, they're still here. New year. I wondered if they'd be there, and they are. Well, how's things going in the future? Yeah? Good. Well, all right. So if you guys remember in our story from last time, raise your hand if you've ever played a game called Drip, Drip, Drop. I don't even know if they have that in the future. No. Did it survive? No, it didn't survive. That's fine. Well, Drip, Drip, Drop was a game where you go around a circle and you drip one drop of water on somebody, and then when you find one that you want to choose, you just dump a whole cup of water on them. And then they're supposed to chase you around, and then if they catch you, they end up spearing you with a spear. So it's a sudden death game. You guys ever played that before? Or? You have? Good, I'm glad you survived. Yeah, it's brutal. Anyway, when it comes to the spread of the gospel, which I've been sharing about, so far, yes, Peter's got out of his city and spread the gospel to a few non-Jewish people. Drip, okay? Philip was willing to get out of his comfort zone a little bit, and God used him to share the gospel with an African, an Ethiopian. Drip. Philip shared the gospel with some half-breeds. Drip. Okay, so the gospel has kind of spread to some non-Jewish people a little bit, but it's just been drips. Tonight, it's going to be like a giant drop, forget even a drop. It's going to be like a giant cannonball in the pool. As Christianity is going to do something it's never done before, as you'll see. All right, I'm going to make this chapter 12 in my account, and let's start right here at verse 19. Okay, Theophilus. Now, when Stephen was killed, some of the people went to a different region, even up as far as Phoenicia, Cyprus, and Antioch, and they only told the message to Jewish people, right? But there were some of them, some Jews who were from one of the islands, from Cyprus, who came to one of the cosmopolitan cities of the empire, Antioch. Now, these Jews who were from the island of Cyprus, they didn't know all the rules, that you're only supposed to share the gospel with Jewish people. They hadn't learned that, right? Of course, they weren't, but that's what a lot of the Jews were doing. They didn't know that. They got to this cosmopolitan city. They got jobs. They were working alongside of people who weren't Jewish. And they decided, one of them had the idea, I don't know who the first one was, we're going to tell these people about Jesus. They're not going to understand. They're not Jewish. And they're like, no, we're going to do it. I'm going to do it. Are you going to help me or not? And they loved their friends and their coworkers, and they were like, we got to tell them. We got to tell them. And are you sure? Yes, they got to be saved. And didn't Jesus say it has to go to all people groups? Well, why not? Okay, let's do it together then. And what they did was they shared the gospel with some non-Jewish people in this cosmopolitan city. They started talking to the Greeks and telling them the good news about Jesus. And God's hand was all about it and totally blessed them. And a huge number of them believed and turned to the Lord. Now, this was over about 5 to 8 years. They were sharing the gospel at their workplace, in their community, with friends and neighbors, non-Jewish people in this cosmopolitan city, slowly. And, most of the Christians were there in Jerusalem. They were mostly Jewish. But first there was 10 non-Jewish Christians in Antioch, then 20, then 30, and then a couple more years went by, 40, 50. People were telling their family. And eventually there was so many non-Jewish people who were getting saved in Antioch that news started to spread all the way back to Jerusalem, where the church leaders were, okay? And so once they found out about that, they decided, you know what, we got to send one of the leaders up there and make sure those guys aren't doing anything goofy, right? And so they decided to send one of their guys to Antioch. Any guesses who they sent up there? They wanted to send, I'll give you a hint. They wanted to send somebody who was real sensitive and a good encourager. They didn't want to like be too hard on these new Christians. So any guesses? Not yet? Okay, well, they sent a guy named Barnabas up there. You guys remember him from the story before? Nobody wanted to hang out with Saul once he got converted. They all thought he was lying. They're like, we got to stay with him. And Barnabas took him by the hand, brought him. Barnabas was the encourager. So they sent good old Barnabas up to Antioch. Go check it out. And he got there and saw signs that, hey, this was legitimate. God is working among these Greek people. And they don't know all the parts about following Jesus yet, but God's grace is definitely here. And so Barnabas encouraged them to stay true to the Lord with all their hearts. Barnabas was a good man, guys. He was filled with the Spirit and with faith. And even more people, a lot more people, were brought to the Lord when Barnabas was up there in Antioch. So Barnabas said to himself, this is awesome. Now we've got a couple hundred people that have gotten saved, a big group of people. Now, when somebody gets saved, what's the next step for them? Disciple them. Who said that? Absolutely, yes. The steps are get saved, get discipled, and get involved in a church family, right? So he had about 100 people, maybe more, Barnabas. They all got saved. Now, who's going to teach them? They don't know anything about following. They're Greeks. They've been worshiping all the other gods. Who's going to teach them what it means to follow Jesus? Well, Barnabas is like, I can't disciple all these. You know, it takes time to disciple people, right? You guys spend time with them, teach them. Barnabas is like, I need to get somebody. I need somebody that knows a lot about the Lord and that could help me, and that's not doing anything right now. And so he thought about it. There's somebody that came to his mind. Any guesses who it is? Yep, it was. I'll give you a hint. Yep, it's somebody who they sent back to his hometown and ain't been doing much. They went, remember that terrorist that became a Christian? He was causing all this trouble, and they were like, you know what, just go back to your hometown for a few years. And then there was peace. Saul. Barnabas is like, I'm going to get that crazy guy Saul. He's going to help me disciple these people. And he can't mess them up because they're already Greeks. They don't know anything. So he went up there and looked for Saul in his home city of Tarsus, and Saul was still there. And he brought him down to Antioch, came all the way down with him. And that took him a few days to go all the way up there to look for Saul, find him, and bring him back to help him disciple these guys. And this is going to be verse 26 of my chapter. You can look it up if you want. Your pastor told me you guys had a discipleship revival, and so you guys already know the 2 parts of discipling somebody, right? What are they? The 2 parts of discipling somebody. Spending time with them, yep, and what's the other one? And you teach them, yep, you teach them what it means to follow Jesus, yep. So, guess what Saul and Barnabas did with those believers for a whole year? Yep. They met with the church. I'm going to write this as verse 26. You can look it up yourself. They met with them. They spent time with them, a lot of time with them, and they taught them how to follow Jesus. Okay? And I think I've got that on the screen that's part of discipling somebody. Oh, maybe. There it is. Yep. Teaching them and sharing life with them. That's the 2 things that they did. Okay. And this was actually the first time, you know, everybody at this time, if you were a follower of Jesus, you know what you were called? You were called a follower of the way, okay? But at this time, some of the other people in Antioch kind of saw how when people became followers of Jesus, it made them different, and they didn't like it, and so they kind of made fun of them. And so the followers of Jesus in this city, they kind of made up a cruel nickname to call them. They decided to call them little chosen ones, because they're always talking about the chosen one in the prophecy. So they called them little chosen ones, or in Greek, little Christs. And the way you say that in Greek is Christians. Not Christ, but Christians, little Christs. And that's the word, as you guys probably know in English, Christians. So Christian was actually a hate term, meaning you're like a little Jesus, a little Christ. And this was the first time any person that was a follower of Jesus was called a Christian. That's when this title came. It came to these Greek followers who didn't know what they were doing in this cosmopolitan city of Antioch. Well, during that time, some prophets came down from Jerusalem and walked up to Antioch. One of them, named Agabus, stood up and predicted that there was going to be a severe famine throughout the empire. And this did happen eventually during the reign of Claudius. And so those believers decided that they would send a gift to their Jewish brothers down in Jerusalem. And they put their gift into the hands of Barnabas. They made a collection and gave it to Barnabas and Saul and had them walk down to Jerusalem to carry it to the Christians there. Well, boom. This is the first megacity to be planted with the gospel. And it's all because that little group of Jews from the island of Cyprus that nobody knew about loved their neighbors, their non-Jewish neighbors that didn't look like them, but they loved them enough and were brave enough to share the gospel with them. And first one person got saved, then another, and then they got discipled, and they started passing the baton to others, discipling them. And the next thing you know, guys, Antioch was one of the strongholds of Christianity. Some of the strongest followers of Jesus, the strongest disciples in the world, were in that city of Antioch. And I've got a secret to tell you about that city, but I'm going to save it for the end of my chapter today. Next, a martyrdom and a jailbreak. This is part 2 of our chapter tonight. All right, you guys know that Jesus had 12 disciples, right? You understand that. Now, you also know that 2 of those disciples had the name James, right? It's a little confusing. 2 of Jesus' 12 disciples were named James, right? Now, you also know that Jesus had a younger brother named James as well, right? And one of Jesus' disciples was named John, right? You know that, right? James and John were brothers, fishermen. And you also know, do you, that Jesus had a cousin named John as well? So this is super confusing because we literally have 3 James and 2 Johns in this small group of 14 people, all right? But just so you don't get confused, I think that's why your pastor put that picture up there, okay? Jesus' brother is James, Jesus' cousin John the Baptist, but then you've got the disciples, James and John. Those guys are brothers. Totally unrelated to the other James and Johns, all right? All right, so now, with all that, here's my question for you. Let's see who's really sharp. Jesus had 12 disciples, but he had 3 of them that he was especially close with. Sometimes special events, he would only take 3 of them with, and they were always the same 3. Do you know which 3 he was closest with? I heard Peter. Yep. Peter, and then the 2 brothers. Yep, I heard it. James and John. Yep, not his cousin and his brother, James and John, but the 2 brothers who were brothers of themselves, but not brothers of Jesus. James and John. Yep. Okay, those 3. So at his transfiguration, those were the only 3 he brought. On the night before he died, when he went to pray, he had all 12 there, but he took those 3 and went to a little further, and it was just those 3 were like his inner circle. Jesus was closer to Peter, James, and John than to anybody else in his life. Those 3 disciples. Those were the ones he was super close with. All right? All right, well, something's going to happen to one of those 3, and it's going to happen suddenly. So here we go. It was about this time King Herod arrested some of those who belonged to the church, intending to persecute them. He had James, the brother of John, put to death with the sword. And when he saw that this pleased the Jews, he seized Peter too. This happened during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. After arresting him, he put him in prison, handed him over to be guarded by 4 squads, this is true, of 4 soldiers each. That's 16 Roman soldiers guarding 1 man, because they knew he'd broken free some other times. There'd been stories. Herod intended to bring him out for trial after the Passover, just like had been done to Jesus 10 years earlier. It's Passover. It's a special celebration. Easter time. We're going to kill Peter, just like we killed the leader of this religion 10 years ago. So Peter was kept in prison, but the church was earnestly praying for him. And the night before his trial, Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers, chained to each one. That's how the Romans did it. And there was sentries standing guard at the entrance. Suddenly, an angel of the Lord appeared, light shining in the cell. He struck Peter on the side, woke him up, said, "Quick, get up." And the chains fell off Peter's wrist. And the angel said to him, "Put your clothes on and sandals." Peter did this. "Wrap your cloak around you, Peter, and follow me," the angel told him. Peter followed him out of the prison. But guys, Peter was half asleep. He didn't even know he was awake, that this was actually happening. He just was, sometimes when you're sleeping, it's like you're not totally there, and somebody might, have you guys even ever sleptwalk before? It's happened in our time period. Okay, yes. Now I haven't, but you can have a conversation sometimes with people and you won't even remember it. You can do things. My buddy had one of his sons was sleepwalking, and he went and used the bathroom in the corner of the house while he was sleepwalking. And then his dad was like, saw him. He's like, "What are you doing?" And woke him up. Yeah, it's strange things when we're half asleep. What can happen to us? Well, Peter didn't know. I mean, he's getting dressed. Yep, get dressed, Peter. Okay. Here, Peter, let's walk. Okay. And he's just walking. Peter got out of the entire prison, walked through the guards, walked through the checkpoints, and where are we? And he got to the final iron gate that leads from the prison. It's the final outer gate of the prison into the city. And the angel just walked him right through, and he got about a block into the city. It's dark. It's nighttime. He's a block into this mega city on the streets, and the angel just left him. And it was at that point, Peter kind of, he's been walking. He's out in the air. He kind of was waking up fully by that point. And it was at that point he realized, oh my goodness, I just broke out of prison through an angel again. Okay then. And so now it's the middle of the night. There's a hit on his life. So what do you think he does? Well, first thing he does, he goes over to that house, that cell group house, where everybody had been praying for him. And he tries to tell him he's there. He knocks on the gate. The servant girl comes, and he says, "It's me, it's Peter." And she goes back running in. She's like, "Guys, they're inside praying for Peter." And he's like, "Guys, it's Peter. He's at the door." It's late night. Right? It's like midnight prayer meeting. And the servant comes in and says, "Guys, Peter's at the door. He's literally here." They're like, "You're crazy. Peter's in prison right now, chained to guards. He's not at the door." Okay? It's probably just his angel or something. So she goes back, and it's Peter there. And basically, Peter's just standing there waiting. But eventually, they decide to check it out, and they let him in, and Peter comes, and they're all getting excited and loud, and he's like, he just calms them. He motions to them, be quiet, guys. Like, it's the middle of the night. They don't even know I've escaped from prison. And he just says, all he says to them is, tell James. Now, this is a different James. Remember I told you Jesus' little brother, James, made fun of him his whole life? Well, after Jesus rose from the dead, James became a believer, and Jesus appeared to James. And James, in the 10 years since Jesus had died and now, James had become one of the strongest leaders, in fact, the strongest leader in the Jerusalem church. James and Peter were the two pillars. So Peter's like, he just gives a quick message to them. He's like, I can't stay long, but tell James and the brothers about this. And then he left for another place. And guys, I've got lots of notes. I've taken lots of interviews of all these people. And to this day, I have no idea where Peter went to. He didn't tell the cell group. He didn't tell anybody. And why do you think he didn't tell anybody? Because soldiers would be looking for him very soon, and that cell group would be one of the first places they would check, and he didn't want to get them in trouble. So he left, and he didn't tell anybody where he was going. But in the morning, Herod searched around. There was a big commotion, and after nobody could find Peter, they gathered together all 16 of those Roman guards, and per Roman law, they were executed. Well, that's the end of I think it's the end of the chapter, more or less. I've got a secret to tell you. But yes, so just reviewing, God has let Herod execute one more Christian. So now, how many Christians have been executed in the first 10 years of Christianity? John the Baptist was the first, got his head chopped off. Jesus was the second, death by crucifixion. Stephen was executed, but how? Stoning. Stephen was killed by stoning. And now James, the disciple, was executed again by beheading, just like John the Baptist with his sword. This is the fourth Christian that God, in his sovereignty, has allowed to be executed. I will slip this little thing in there. 2 years later, God, it appears, in my opinion, got his revenge on Herod. If you want to find out what happened to King Herod and how he died, it's very interesting. Check the manga. I am putting in it my story. I'm going to make it verses 19 to 25, but I'm skipping it for you guys. We don't have time. So if you want that story, check there. But now my secret. I told you guys I had a secret. And the reason I love this chapter in the story the most is, did any of you notice how when I said these crazy Jews from the island, I said they came to Antioch? I didn't say they went to Antioch. Did any of you catch that? Probably not. Antioch, guys, was my city. Me and my family lived in Antioch, okay? I was one of those people that they shared the gospel with, and Paul as well when he came. I was just a Greek doctor. Me and my whole family, we served the Roman and Greek gods, okay? We didn't know any better. Guys, we were empty. We had no hope. We didn't even know if these gods were real or not. They definitely weren't nice. They didn't have any scrolls where they ever tried to talk to us, right? And guys, my family and I, we did stuff while we were following those gods that I would be too embarrassed to tell you about. We did dirty, bad things, a lot of bad things. But then this Paul guy and these strange Jewish Christians told us about Jesus and how he proved he was the chosen one by actually, literally, physically rising from the dead, and that they'd seen him. Paul said himself he had seen him. And I got saved. I became a believer. It was all new to me, but I repented of my sins, and I believed in Jesus as the chosen one. And Jesus did begin changing me from the inside out. Literally, I had hope in my life that I never had before. The first in my family. I had purpose like I'd never had. And even to this day, starting at that point, I feel so awake now and so alive. And so my challenge to you guys there, in what year are you guys in again? It was 2019, right? 20. Okay, it's changing now. Well, it's still 62 AD. When did it change for you guys? Well, congratulations. Welcome to 2020. I'm going to have to change the signs, I guess, here now. 2020. Well, whatever year it is for you guys, here's my challenge to you. Who do you have in your world that needs the news about Jesus? Who do you have in your life that doesn't have any hope? And they're not, maybe they don't tell you, they don't walk around saying, I have no hope, I'm hopeless, but they don't have it. Do you guys know, I've got this verse up on the screen, that God's eyes literally, check this verse out. God's eyes literally move back and forth across the earth. Did you ever know that? All the time. And he's looking for one thing all the time, 24/7, 365. God is looking for a man or a woman whose heart is totally his, so he can use that person to do powerful things. And so my challenge to you is, who do you have in your world that needs the message of Jesus? And my next question for you is, are you available to this God who's looking, his eyes roaming around the earth? Are you available to him? Or are you too distracted? Are there a lot of things in 2020 that distract you from God if you let him? Or no, your whole life is like focused on God all the time? Is there a lot of distractions? I heard someone say it's hard. Yeah, there was a lot of distractions in my time period too. There was a lot of stuff going on that to pull a person's eyes off of following God. And if you get too distracted, you can't be fully available to God. Maybe you're not distracted, but you're scared. You're scared that if you ever totally offer yourself to God, you'll end up becoming one of those weird Christians, and you'll feel like God's going to force me to just put Jesus into every conversation that I'm in. Like, I'm going to be in the food line at school, and I'm going to be like forced to like talk about Jesus like right then and there with every person I interact with. Guys, I can tell you from experience, you surrender yourself and make yourself available to him, it's not going to be like that. You're not going to have to force anything. The key question is simply, are you available to him? And if your answer as you sit here is yes, then I've got a challenge for you. I'm going to give you 4 things that I'll challenge you to do. Answer in your heart. I want you to raise your hand in your heart if this is true. Are you available to God? His eyes are looking in every generation. This is your chance. Are you one of those people who are literally available, or you want to be available to him? And if you answer yes in your heart, then here's my challenge to you. I give you 4 practical challenges, and I'm going to rip through these. 1, your friends and your family and your coworkers and your neighbors that need Jesus, don't go over to them and just start talking to them about Jesus tonight. Bad idea, okay? Here's what you do. Number 1, you pray that God would break through their hearts. You don't do nothing. You don't say anything to them. You just start praying. Pray that God would break through. Maybe target just 1 or 2, because if you're prone to distraction, you start praying for too many people, you're not going to keep that up for more than 1 or 2 nights, and then you're going to forget about it and fall asleep or pray about other things. Maybe pick 1 or 2. Pray for God to break through. Step number 2, try to find and think of new ways to show love to them. New ways, not some of the same old ways. Get creative with it. Do some stuff they're not going to expect. Freshen it up. Surprise them a little bit. Think. Put some effort, some creativity into some unique way of showing love to them. That's step number 2. Step number 1, pray for God to break through. Step number 2, keep trying new ways of showing love to them. Now here it is. Step number 3. This is the dangerous step. Don't do it if you're not ready for it. If you're afraid, don't do it yet. All right? Or maybe do it even if you are afraid. But be ready when you do. Step 3. Pray for God. You ready, guys? Pray for God to open up a door for you to share with that person why you've got so much hope in your life. It's not complicated. Why do you have hope in your life? Who's the person that gave you hope? It's because of Jesus. Yeah, you have God, you have Jesus in your life. That's why you have hope. Not complicated. They see that you're different. Okay? Pray that God will open up a door for you to share. Don't just go babbling. I could say this. You pray God would open up a door. And you say, what do you mean by an open door? Like literally I'm going to be outside their house and their door is going to open? No, I'm talking metaphor. But it's going to be something like this. You're hanging out with them, and all of a sudden they throw one of these questions at you. So, hey, this might seem like a weird question, but why are you different than other people? You know what that kind of a question is, guys? That is an open door. Okay? So you don't force it. Don't force Jesus into every conversation, okay? You pray if you're brave enough. Don't do it till you're ready, okay? Because then you got to be ready, all right? Pray. And I guarantee you the first open door, you're going to miss it. It's going to come. You're going to be like, oh, there it was. You're going to like totally miss it because you're not used to living this way. But then you pray again, ask God to open up another one. You'll probably miss 2 or 3, and then you'll be ready on the 3rd one. And you do have to have courage to step through. Even though you know what you're going to say, you got to walk through. It takes some courage, some strength. But the Spirit will help you. So that's step 3. You pray God to open up a door, and they'll probably ask a question. And step number 4 is this. You just relax while you wait. Pray for that open door, and don't get all nervous. You just relax. And you go and you hang out with them. You just relax. If it doesn't happen the first day, you keep praying. You keep relaxing. You just relax. Be yourself. Enjoy your time with them. Enjoy God. Have fun. Live the free, hope-filled, joy-filled life that you've got. And wait. And just stay ready and relax as you wait. Okay? Keep peace and control of your heart. And just wait for that open door. All right. So in this chapter of our story, God surprised everybody. He used some Christians nobody even knew about and unleashed the gospel in one of Rome's biggest megacities. Well, it's your guys' time now. This is your generation, so my encouragement is take the challenge that I gave you. Keep your ears and eyes open. You never know when this untamed God is going to use you to unleash the gospel into the lives of one of the people in your world that needs it. So stay ready for him, and my final word of advice would be, as you're waiting for him and seeking him for this, enjoy the adventure. Enjoy the adventure as you do it. We sure enjoyed our adventure. Well, this has been chapter 12 of our story, Acts.